Why is it so hard to say no and set boundaries and put up limits on what we're okay with and what we're not okay with? Why do we feel so guilty? We feel like we're being rude. We feel like people are going to criticize us, that people are going to think that we don't love them if we say no. It's so hard to set up boundaries. Maybe that's just me, but I think a lot of people can relate, right? For me, saying no has always been a struggle. When we feel like something is off, when we feel like we don't want to do something and we end up saying yes and doing things for people that we don't want to do, we feel drained. It drains us so much. We walk around, it's like we have this weight on our shoulder, there's this off feeling, and then we start to get resentful. Like it's the person's fault to put you in this position. When in reality, we are the ones enabling. So it's like it's a very confused, mixed feelings that happen, right? It takes a lot of courage to stand up for our boundaries, that's for sure. And it takes a lot of self-love too, to understand what our boundaries are. Because we all have some sort of boundaries, but when there's someone close to us, someone we love, come and ask us something that we feel like we don't want to, it just feels wrong. It feels wrong to say no. Even though we know that we wouldn't like to do that, it feels wrong to say no. One of the things that I struggled with most was understanding and decoding. Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so drained? Even though it might feel a little empowering when you're doing it at the moment, right? Because you're doing something for someone, so it feels good. It feels good to say yes. But then there's that weight that comes after. So it took me a second to understand why I was feeling so drained, why I was with this weight and this unsettling feeling inside of me that I'm doing something wrong. And for me, this pattern of not setting boundaries got super loud when I started working with healings and taking sessions, because I would just want to do for free for my friends, family. Every time someone called me, I would just full on give all the advice without even being asked sometimes, but sometimes being asked. I would just go full on and give a session and then feel extremely drained. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why that happens. Why do we feel drained? One of the reasons is we're not in fair exchange. If you're providing a value, the other person should be giving you some value in exchange. So many times I gave my all and then got super frustrated because nobody took an action on my exercises. And whose fault is that, right? We ask, whose fault is that? And we might feel like we're helping someone by forcing some advice towards them, but in reality, we're actually hurting them. We're hurting their process. Why? When you're ready to learn, you invest in something, right? It takes a lot of pain and heartbreaks for you to actually open your heart and be willing to do the work. So sometimes when people are complaining, they don't really want advice, and I found this out the hard way. Sometimes they just want to complain. So we don't need to be giving advice freely like that, because they're not going to take it anyways. So one thing that I learned is when people are actually ready to learn and take action, they will invest in something. If there's no fair exchange, if they're not paying for the service or giving you something in return, they're not seeing the value. And they're not prioritizing it, because they might say, oh, I don't have money right now. But then if we ask, okay, but how much money you're spending on drinks this month? How much money are you spending going out? How much money are you spending on clothes and coffee? Whatever it is that you're spending your money on. When we say we don't have money, it's because we're not prioritizing something. And if you're not prioritizing your healing, if you're not seeing the full value of this, how much do you think they're gonna take action towards it? So it's a tricky thing because it was so hard for me to charge for a session. It was so hard. I'm like, no, if they know me, I'll just give a discount or I'll just do it for free. And I didn't realize that for the healing to occur, people need to be open, they need to be ready, they need to invest in themselves. If they don't see the value, they're very likely not going to take any actions either. They're going to listen, and that's gonna slip right after. So that is one major thing that I learned in regards to setting boundaries, is to not give anything that it's not in fair exchange. You're draining yourself, you're not helping them because they're not going to take action. So do you know what I mean? Like, it might feel like you're doing something, it might feel good in the moment, but when you look at the results, if they didn't take any action, did you really help them? And if they didn't see the value to invest in that with you, maybe you are not the right person to work with them. It stops them from going to look somewhere else. Whether if you don't give the advice, maybe they will actually look for someone who is a match to work with them. You see? It's good both ways. I'm not saying don't give advice to your friends. I'm saying be careful with free value. Not free value, free service, whatever it is that you're offering. Because you might think that you're helping them, but you might actually be hurting them more than anything. Another reason why I believe that we feel super drained when we don't set boundaries is because we are enabling people. We are enabling instead of empowering, and that does not feel good. The moment we allow people to be dependent on us, whatever that situation is, whatever that thing is that they come to us for that thing, if there isn't a value exchange, a fair exchange, and you're just giving them something that they are dependent on you for, they're not seeing their own potential, and you're enabling them to continue to do so. I believe that we should teach how to fish instead of just giving the fish, right? Because if they don't know how to fish, you're gonna give the fish right now, and then tomorrow they're hungry again. But if you teach them how to fish, every single day from now on, they will have a fish. So we need to be really careful with feeling responsible for people and feeling like we need to fix their life or allow them to be dependent on us, because that's not true. Everyone has an unlimited potential to thrive. And if we continue enabling because we don't see their potential, because we don't want to say no, whatever it is, if we enable it, we're taking their power away. And when we do that, we feel this huge weight. And again, we might be resentful of that person, but we are the ones saying yes. We are the ones enabling them. Another reason why I think it's so hard to say no and set boundaries is because we are searching for the validation outside of ourselves. We are listening to the outside more than we're listening to our inner guide. How good does it feel when we say no and then someone gives you that guilty look, like making you feel so bad because you said no, or they look at you like you're not a good person, or they look at you like, what? You don't love me? Like, whatever it is, there will be some sort of uncomfortable feeling, right? And because you want that validation from that person so much, you end up saying yes, when deep inside you're like, that's definitely a no for me. One of the things that helped me was to really stand to my truth and understand why something is a no. Why am I not comfortable with this? Why do I believe it's correct to do it this way? Why do I believe these are my limits, these are my boundaries? And be really rooted in my intuition, my inner guide. So when a situation like this happens, you immediately know what is right for you, and you're not dependent on the validation from that person because you have already validated yourself. And this can happen in all areas of our life, right? It could be career. Maybe you find it really hard to say no to your boss. Maybe it happens in your family. You can say no. Maybe it happens in social settings where you get influenced by what everyone is doing because you want to fit in. You don't want to look like you're the one who doesn't belong. So what is it for you? I would love to hear from you. What boundaries do you struggle with? What is hard for you to listen to your inner guide rather than the outside?